So I'm doing kind of a spec thing. It's The Church at Prayer by Archimandrite Aimilianos of Simonopetra, or as our Greek abbot says, Simonopetra. Still working on that. Anyway, I was reading this at Trapeza the other day, and it hit me pretty hard. We actually started, or I started reading. I picked up where they left off at the previous Trapeza. The previous chapter sort of moved from how monasticism is a perfect model for society to marriage, the great sacrament. So I haven't read much about this book or read this book at all, just these passages. And I got to say, the marriage stuff here is very challenging because it's so unlike anything we are used to. So, and yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. But it was pretty powerful. And given all the debates and everything else going on out there in social media world, the red pill guys, the MGTOWs, now the liberal women are taking vows of celibacy for the next 4 years because of the election. There's just a lot of confusion and weirdness going on about marriage. And so I thought I would record this. So hope you enjoy it. If you stick it out for the whole, I don't know, this is going to be at least 15 minutes probably, then good for you. I'm glad you like it. Plus, I'm trying some new audio stuff, new process and whatnot. Sorry, this is going to be thumps and bumps. Trying out some new audio stuff to practice this craft. So here I go. Marriage, the great sacrament. Nobody would dispute that the most important day in a person's life, after his birth and baptism, is that of his marriage. It is no surprise, then, that the aim of contemporary worldly and institutional upheavals is precisely to crush the most honorable and sacred mystery of marriage. For many people, marriage is an opportunity for pleasures and amusements. Life, however, is a serious affair. It is a spiritual struggle, a progression toward a goal, heaven. The most crucial juncture and the most important means of this progression is marriage. It is not permissible for anyone to avoid the bonds of marriage, whether he concludes a mystical marriage by devoting himself to God, or whether he concludes a sacramental one with a spouse. Today we will concern ourselves primarily with the sacramental marriage. We will consider how marriage can contribute to our spiritual life in order to continue the theme of our previous talk. We know that marriage is an institution established by God. It is honorable, Hebrews 13:4. It is a great mystery, Ephesians 5:32. An unmarried person passes through life and leaves it, but a married person lives and experiences life to the full. One wonders what people today think about the sacred institution of marriage, this great mystery blessed by our church. They marry, and it's as if two checking accounts or two business interests were being merged. Two people are united without ideals, two zeros, you could say. But people without ideals, without quests, are nothing more than zeros. I married in order to live my life, you hear people say, and not to be shut inside four walls. I married to enjoy my life, they say. And then they hand over their children, if they have children, to some strange woman so they can run off to the theater, the movies, or to some other worldly gathering. And so their houses become hotels to which they return in the evening, or rather, after midnight, after they've had their fun and need to rest. Such people are empty inside, and so in their homes they feel a real void. They find no gratification there, and thus they rush and slide from here to there in order to find their happiness. They marry without knowledge, without a sense of responsibility, or simply because they wish to get married, or because they think they must in order to be good members of society. But what is the result? We see it every day. The shipwrecks of marriage are familiar to us all. A worldly marriage, as it is understood today, can only have one characteristic, the murder of a person's spiritual life. Thus, we must feel that, if we fail in our marriage, we have more or less failed in our spiritual life. If we succeed in our marriage, we have also succeeded in our spiritual life. Success or failure, progress or ruin, in our spiritual life, begins with our marriage. Because this is such a serious matter, let us consider some of the conditions necessary for a happy, truly Christian marriage. In order to have a successful marriage, one must have the appropriate upbringing from an early age. Just as a child must study, just as he learns to think and take an interest in his parents or his health, so too must he be prepared in order to be able to have a successful marriage. But in the age in which we live, no one is interested in preparing their children for this great mystery, a mystery which will play the foremost role in their lives. Parents are not interested, except in the dowry or in other such financial matters in which they are deeply interested. The child, from an early age, must learn to love, to give, to suffer deprivation, to obey. He must learn to feel that the purity of his soul and body is a valuable treasure to be cherished as the apple of his eye. The character of the child must be shaped properly, so that he becomes an honest, brave, decisive, sincere, cheerful person, and not a half, self-pitying creature who constantly bemoans his fate, a weak-willed thing without any power of thought or strength. From an early age, the child should learn to take an interest in a particular subject or occupation, so that tomorrow he will be in a position to support his family, or, in the case of a girl, also to help, if this is necessary. A woman must learn to be a housewife, even if she has an education. She should learn to cook, to sew, to embroider. But, my good father, you might say, this is all self-evident. Ask married couples, however, and you'll see how many women who are about to marry know nothing about running a household. Once we reach a certain age, moreover, the choice of one's life partner is a matter which should not be put off. Neither should one be in a hurry because, as the saying goes, quick to marry, quick to despair. But one should not delay, because delay is a mortal danger to the soul. As a rule, the normal rhythm of the spiritual life begins with marriage. An unmarried person is like someone trying to live permanently in a hallway. He doesn't seem to know what the rooms are for. Parents should take an interest in the child's social life, but also in his prayer life, so that the blessed hour will come as a gift sent by God. Naturally, when he comes to choose a partner, he will take into account his parents' opinion. How often have parents felt knives piercing their hearts when their children don't ask them about a person who will be their companion in life? A mother's heart is sensitive and can't endure such a blow. The child should discuss matters with his parents, because they have a special intuition enabling them to be aware of the things which concern them. But this doesn't mean that the father and mother should pressure the child. Ultimately, he should be free to make his own decision. If you pressure your child to marry, he will consider you responsible if things don't go well. Nothing good comes from pressure. You must help him, but you must also allow him to choose the person he prefers or loves, but not someone he pities or feels sorry for. If your child, after getting to know someone, tells you, "I feel sorry for the poor soul, I'll marry him," then you know that you are on the threshold of a failed marriage. Only a person whom he or she prefers or loves can stand by the side of your child. Both the man and the woman should be attracted to each other, and they should truly want to live together, in an inward way, unhurriedly. On this matter, however, it is not possible to pressure our children. Sometimes, out of love, we feel that they are our possessions, that they are our property, and that we can do what we want with them, and thus our child becomes a creature incapable of living life, either married or unmarried. Of course, the process of getting acquainted, which is such a delicate issue, but of which we are often heedless, should take place before marriage. We should never be complacent about getting to know each other, especially if we're not sure of our feelings. Love shouldn't blind us. It should open our eyes to see the other person as he is, with his faults. Better to take a shoe from your own house, even if it's cobbled, says the folk proverb. That is, it's better to take someone you've gotten to know. And acquaintanceship must always be linked with engagement, which is an equally difficult matter. When I suggested to a young woman that she should think seriously about whether she should continue her engagement, she replied, "If I break it off, my mother will kill me." But what sort of engagement is it if there's no possibility of breaking it off? To get engaged doesn't mean that I'll necessarily get married. It means that I'm testing to see whether I should marry the person I'm engaged to. If a person isn't in a position to break off her engagement, she shouldn't get engaged, or rather, she shouldn't go ahead with the marriage. During the engagement, we must be especially careful. If we are, we will have fewer problems and fewer disappointments after the wedding. Someone once said that, during the period of getting to know one another, you should hold on to your heart firmly with both hands, as if it were a wild animal. You know how dangerous the heart is. Instead of leading you to marriage, it can lead you to sin. There is the possibility that the person you've chosen sees you as a mere toy, or a toothbrush to be tried out. Afterwards, you'll be depressed and shed many tears. But then it will be too late because your angel will have turned out to be made of clay. Don't choose a person who wastes his time at clubs, having a good time, or throwing away his money on traveling and luxuries. Neither should you choose someone who, as you'll find out, conceals his self-centeredness beneath words of love. Don't choose a woman as your wife who is like gunpowder, so that as soon as you say something to her, she bursts into flames. She's no good as a wife. Moreover, if you want to have a truly successful marriage, don't approach that young woman or man who is unable to leave his or her parents. The commandment of Christ is clear. A man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife. Mark 10:7. But as soon as you see the other person tied to his mother or father, when you see that he obeys them with his mouth hanging open, and he is prepared to do whatever they tell him, keep well away. He is emotionally sick, a psychologically immature person, and you won't be able to create a family with him. The man you will make your husband should be spirited. But how can he be spirited when he hasn't realized, hasn't understood, hasn't digested the fact that his parents' house was simply a flower pot in which he was put, to be taken out later and transplanted somewhere else? Also, when you're going to choose a husband, make sure that he's not an uncommunicative type, in which case he'll have no friends. And if today he has no friends, tomorrow he'll find it difficult to have you as a friend and partner. Be on your guard against grumblers, moaners, and gloomy people who are like dejected birds. Be on your guard against those who complain all the time. You don't love me, you don't understand me, and all that sort of thing. Something about these creatures of God isn't right. Also, be on your guard against religious fanatics and the overly pious. Those, that is, who get upset over trivial things, who are critical of everything and hypersensitive. How are you going to live with such a person? It will be like sitting on thorns. Also, look out for those who regard marriage as something bad, a form of imprisonment. Those who say, "But I've never in my whole life thought about getting married." Watch out for certain pseudo-Christians who see marriage as something sordid, as sin, who immediately cast their eyes down when they hear anything said about it. If you marry someone like this, he will be a thorn in your flesh and a burden for his monastery if he becomes a monk. Watch out for those who think that they're perfect and find no defect in themselves while constantly finding fault in others. Watch out for those who think they've been chosen by God to correct everyone else. There is another serious matter to which you should also pay attention: heredity. Get to know well the father, the mother, the grandfather, the grandmother, the uncle. Also, the basic material prerequisites should be there. After all, pay attention to the person's faith. Does he or she have faith? Has the person whom you're thinking of making the companion of your life have ideals? If Christ means nothing to him, how are you going to be able to enter his heart? If he has not been able to value Christ, do you think he will value you? Holy Scripture says to the husband that the wife should be of your testament, Malachi 2:14. That is, of your faith, of your religion, so that she can join you to God. It is only then that you can have, as the Church Fathers say, a marriage with the consent of the bishop, that is, with the approval of the Church, and not simply a formal license. Discuss things in advance with your spiritual father. Examine every detail with him, and he will stand by your side as a true friend, and, when you reach the desired goal, then your marriage will be a gift from God. 1 Corinthians 7:7. God gives his own gift to each one of us. He leads one person to marriage and another to virginity. Not that God makes the choice by saying, you go here and you go there, but he gives us the nerve to choose what our heart desires, and the courage and the strength to carry it out. If you choose your spouse in this way, then thank God. Bring him into touch with your spiritual father. If you don't have one, the two of you should choose a spiritual father together, who will be your elder, your father, the one who will remind you of and show you God. You will have many difficulties in life. There will be a storm of issues. Worries will surround you, and maintaining your Christian life will not be easy. But don't worry. God will help you. Do what is within your power. Can you read a spiritual book for 5 minutes a day? Then read. Can you pray for 5 minutes a day? Pray. And if you can't manage for 5 minutes, pray for 2. The rest is God's affair. When you see difficulties in your marriage, when you see that you're making no progress in your spiritual life, don't despair. But neither should you be content with whatever progress you may have already made. Lift up your heart to God. Imitate those who have given everything to God, and do what you can to be like them, even if all you can do is desire in your heart to be like them. Leave the action to Christ. And when you advance in this way, you will truly sense what is the purpose of marriage. Otherwise, as a blind person wanders about, so too will you wander in life. What then is the purpose of marriage? I will tell you 3 of its main aims. First of all, marriage is a path of pain. The companionship of man and wife is called yoking together. That is, the 2 of them labor under a shared burden. Marriage is a journeying together, a shared portion of pain, and, of course, a joy. But usually it's 6 chords of our life which sound a sorrowful note, and only one of which is joyous. Man and wife will drink from the same cup of upheaval, sadness, and failure. During the marriage ceremony, the priest gives the newlyweds to drink from the same cup, called the common cup, because together they will bear the burdens of marriage. The cup is also called union, because they are joined together to share life's joys and sorrows. When 2 people get married, it's as if they're saying, "Together we will go forward, hand in hand, through good times and bad. We will have dark hours, hours of sorrow filled with burdens, monotonous hours. But in the depths of the night, we will continue to believe in the sun and the light." Oh, my dear friends, who can say that his life has not been marked by difficult moments? But it is no small thing to know that, in your difficult moments, in your worries, in your temptations, you will be holding in your hand the power of your beloved. The New Testament says that every man will have pain, especially those who enter into marriage. Are you free from a wife? Which means, are you unmarried? Asks the Apostle Paul. Then do not seek a wife. But if you do marry, you are not doing anything wrong. It is no sin. And if a girl marries, she does not sin. But those who marry will have hardships to endure. And my aim is to spare you. 1 Corinthians 7:27-28. Remember, from the moment you marry, he says, you will have much pain, you will suffer, and your life will be a cross, but a cross blossoming with flowers. Your marriage will have its joys, its smiles, and its beautiful things. But during the days of sunshine, remember that all the lovely flowers conceal a cross, which can emerge into your sunshine at any moment. Life is not a party, as some people think, and after they get married, take a fall from heaven to earth. Marriage is a vast ocean, and you don't know where it will wash up. You take the person whom you've chosen with fear and trembling, and with great care, and after a year, 2 years, 5 years, you discover that he's fooled you. It is an adulteration of marriage for us to think that it is a road to happiness, as if it were a denial of the cross. The joy of marriage is for husband and wife to put their shoulders to the wheel and together go forward on the uphill road of life. You haven't suffered? Then you haven't loved, says a certain poet. Only those who suffer can really love. And that's why sadness is a necessary feature of marriage. Marriage, in the words of an ancient philosopher, is a world made beautiful by hope and strengthened by misfortune. Just as steel is fashioned in a furnace, just so is a person proved in marriage, in the fire of its difficulties. When you see your marriage from a distance, everything seems wonderful. But when you get closer, you'll see just how many difficult moments it has. End of part 1.